Okay, so welcome everyone. Today we're going to shine a light internally. So, as you can see, that's a garden shed. It looks similar to my garden shed. It's not actually my garden shed. Maybe I should have used a picture of my garden shed, but it's a garden shed. So much like planning the veggie garden or the vegetable garden for the season ahead, when we take stock, we can clear away the cobwebs and noise and take a giant leap forward. So, as Linda said, I've been all over the world and I've worked with lots and lots of different organizations and leaders in lots of different countries. And everywhere I go, and of all the leaders I've worked with, I've learned something that separates leaders who move fast from those who get stuck. And that's conscious leaders and who have certainty. So when I talk about a conscious leader, I'm not talking about a leader who's awake and vertical, right? Who's, with us. I'm actually talking about a leader who's aware and purposeful. So they know what's going on around them. They might not be deep in the weeds, but they know what's going on sufficiently to be able to redirect or reset as required. So conscious leaders sense when something's off and they act. They don't wait for an escalation or crisis to move them. They want certainty and are laser focused on getting it. And unconscious leaders, well, they wait. So if someone is an unconscious leader, they're waiting and they're hoping that things will just somehow magically resolve themselves. And that's okay until they hit their fed up limit and wake up to the costs of uncertainty. So the difference isn't intelligence or resourcing in terms of being certain or uncertain and knowing what you're going to do next. It's intervention. And that's because most leaders don't design for certainty. They just assume it. Because certainty doesn't work that way. It's not accidental, it's actually intentional. And so certainty is about knowing what's happening in a way that allows us to do what matters, when it matters most, on purpose and with purpose. We're consciously connecting the dots all the time. And here's what I know from what I see. When we're uncertain, we're hesitant, and that drives misalignment in other areas. This drives hidden costs and holds us back, and it erodes potential, not just for us, but for our people and for our businesses. If we don't see it coming, it will cost us time, capital, and momentum. So today we're going to look at what's going on internally, not to add complexity, but to unlock it so that we can increase our certainty and confidence around our operations and our projects, and we can deal proactively with the areas that are driving hidden costs. But before we do that, there's a what if. What if the gap between your vision and your operations is actually costing you more than you think? So right now, here's a question for you all, and I'd really love you to put in the chat yes or no, and Amanda, help me here because I can't see the chat. Right now, do you have any uncertainty in either your operational activities or some sort of project that you're working on or that you're investing in? So a yay or a nay or a not sure or abstain, whichever you prefer. But it'd be good to get a gauge of whether you do or don't have some sort of challenge going on. Okay, now I can't see that, so let me just see if I can open it. Okay, here we go. Now I've got it going. Okay, yes, 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 yes. Okay, well, that's not really too much of a surprise because regardless of what we're doing, we've in some way, shape, or form, we're not sure what's going on. So now I've got another question for you, and you can think about this as we go forward. Maybe note it down. You might want to share it, whichever you like. So what do you think is the biggest contributor to that uncertainty right now? What do you think's driving that? Okay, fear from clients. Okay, that's an interesting one, Lisa. Okay, change. Yeah, change scares everyone, doesn't it, Kathy? Okay, so Because like it or not, that uncertainty will be driving a bunch of hidden costs. But don't overthink it. Just grab your whatever pops into your mind as your biggest contributor at the moment, because it's interesting to see what challenges we all have in common here. Now, I want to share, while you're thinking about that, a little known fact about me, though you might be getting a hint of it from the pictures in this presentation. I love my vegetable garden, right? My vegetable garden is one of my favorite places. That and fishing and other things, but my vegetable garden is a great place. Now, sometimes I'm negligent, but I find my vegetable garden both therapeutic, now I can't speak, and rewarding, particularly when I harvest produce from it and someone else like my husband cooks it, because then I get to eat without having to make a mess. And just like I know it's necessary to prepare the soil before I plant something, we, as leaders and business owners and people who work with anybody else, need to make sure that our vision of what we're trying to achieve is clear and our business operations support that vision. Because only then will we be able to see the gaps quickly and keep those pesky hidden costs down. But why, when we think we're doing everything right, do these gaps even appear? Okay, and we're going to take a look at some of those now, why this happens. Okay, now vegetable gardens are great. I have a green thumb, Amanda, with my veggies, and I have a black thumb with my flowers. So I stick with my veggie garden. Okay, so why does this happen? Okay, so when there's a gap, it leaves us struggling to execute effectively. And by default, that increases operational inefficiencies. So oh, hang on a minute, I've lost my thing. The gap isn't in the effort, it's in the alignment. Now, here's an example, and let's just see if this example resonates with anyone. So I'm going to tell a story. Once upon a time, there was a government agency in New Zealand that I worked with, and they had a solid governance model on paper, but they had a problem with their project organisation and thought their PMO needed fixing because it wasn't doing what they needed it to do. But in the discovery phase or activity that I was doing, I found out that their people didn't really understand what the end game was, so they executed on the wrong things. The processes and systems that they had in place created bottlenecks instead of flow. And because of that, bureaucracy reigned. A government department is inherent with bureaucracy anyway, but it really did take the biscuit, this level of bureaucracy, and decisions just took forever. And those leading had competing agendas, yet those agendas were being disguised as priorities. So basically, their vision wasn't translating into action, and the wrong things were escalating, and key decisions got delayed or didn't happen at all. So when we mapped what each area needed and how the people, leadership, and processes needed to connect to each other to deliver that, and we mapped all of that out, excuse me, everything shifted and aligned just like magic. It was just like magic fairy dust. And so the decisions that really mattered got made, and certainty was present. So people knew what was going on. They had confidence. They could see what was happening. They were having the right conversations with the right people. They were getting the information in the right way that they needed when they needed it. And so hopefully most of you recognize something in that example and what I did in the discovery to find out what was going on. Because like me, I'm sure you follow something similar with your own clients, yet somehow we struggle to apply it to ourselves. So we find it difficult to eat our own dog food sometimes. So let's take a moment to refresh on the framework that I used to actually do this exercise with this organisation in New Zealand, and what happened, or what we actually went through for them to get where they needed to go. And this, my friends, is the framework. So, I spend my time working alongside leaders who are either already in chaos or who believe the light at the end of the tunnel is probably a train just waiting to hit. And just like preparing the soil before planting out your seedlings, you have to know what you're working with before you can change or grow anything. And that makes this framework really pretty simple. Assess to establish the baseline of what you need to deal with. That's the first step that you need to do. If you don't have your baseline, then you don't know what you're dealing with, right? And you don't know how to improve. So assess first, then you can move into resetting. And resetting by being intentional about what matters and what doesn't. Delivery is when you are delivering through clarity and consistency, especially if you want to nurture and grow. If you're not clear and you're not consistent in your actions, then again, you've got random things going on, which I know Laura loves dealing with, random acts, and you're again going to have hidden costs of uncertainty that are going to cause you a problem. And lastly is sustaining. So when you're leading with certainty as your sweet spot, that means that you can provide stability. Crikey, I can't talk tonight. Means you can provide stability not only to yourself but to the people that you're working with. So we're going to take a closer look at each one of these and give you some insights into ways that you can move through each of these phases, perhaps in a slightly different way, maybe not, that you might have thought about before. Okay, so the assess step is the first thing, and that's what you need to baseline, as I said before. It's effectively your discovery, and without this, you won't be able to do anything, so it's essential. Just like growing good veg, you must do the groundwork first. So that means to remove obstacles and get aligned, we must evaluate our operations, what we're doing and how we're doing it. We need to ask some good questions, and asking good questions will tell us whether the team or the people that we work with, or even ourselves, actually get our vision, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve, and the end goal, and how ready everything is for effective execution. So here's another thing for you now to think about. Let me just move this chat over here because it's getting in my way. Okay, so here's something for you now. See these 3 questions? Can your team clearly articulate your vision and their role in achieving it? Do your decision-making processes enable or block execution and delivery? And is your leadership team, or your team, whoever it is that you have supporting you or around you, truly aligned on what matters? So with those 3 questions in mind, and on a scale of 1 to 10, have a think about this question. How aligned is your vision with your operations right now? Or how aligned are your operations with your vision right now? Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being absolutely, on a scale of 1 to 10. Feel free to put your score in the chat, because this score becomes your baseline, effectively, of where we're heading next. I'm just going to move this chat again. Whoopsie, sorry. Oops. Gosh, I'm really out of control. Sorry, everyone. Right. So how aligned is yours on the scale of 1 to 10? I like that answer, Kathy. That's pretty good. Okay. 9, 8, great. Okay. 6.5, 7, not bad. Okay, good. So the purpose of having this baseline or this score is it will help you strip away perhaps some of the assumptions that you have of how great things are or how they're not so great. And it means that you can get objective instead of subjective on where there may be some gaps. Now, I have a mini diagnostic, which I think Amanda put the link in at the beginning of this session. So that's already in the chat. There is also at the end of this presentation a QR code, so you can grab that as well. And I'm really happy to share that. I use that with with clients, and the QR code is at the end. It's a really great place to begin to further nail down how aligned your operations are with your vision and where you're heading. And it covers, it only takes about 5 minutes, and it's 9 quick questions across 3 key areas. So it's a pretty easy thing to do. It will give you an idea of what could be driving uncertainty in those 3 areas. And it'll also give you some guidance on where to focus first. So it's a really simple, quick, effective tool. Important though with this assessment or this assess phase is that without this preparation, we'll keep treating symptoms instead of causes, and we'll invest time and resources in the wrong fixes, and our level of uncertainty and its costs will multiply. So that's why we need to do this baseline. And now we're going to move on to the next step, which is the reset. Oh, hang on a minute. Yes, here we go, the reset. Okay, so now, just like when you're deciding what to plant and where you're going to plant it, we need to be intentional about what matters and what doesn't. So the reset means that we need to be clarifying our non-negotiables. We need to be aligning on our priorities, making decisive calls, and ensuring every investment connects to our vision. Now, decisive calls should also be informed, and that's where your certainty comes into play, right? So those things are really important, because when we skip them, we'll continually revisit and reset the same broken things in the same broken way. So it's just like when we're using bad data in, bad data out, so our analysis is rubbish, right? Because it's all based on bad data. So it's really important that we're resetting the things that we are identifying need to be reset in a way that will change what's going to happen in the future. So if we continue to revisit and reset the same broken things in the same broken way, that's almost the definition of madness, right? It's a little bit nuts. So because now it's important to understand that alignment can be quite hard. But also, if we don't do the reset, then our resources will keep flowing into the wrong places, and that's not going to help us at all. So let's go back to the earlier question where I asked, what do you think is the biggest contributor to your uncertainty? Okay, and you all made some comments. So now I want you to think about your answer to that question in this way. For that one contributor, what decision would you make? Either fix, pivot, pause, or kill. Would you fix it? Would you pivot it, change its course? Would you pause it, or would you stop doing it? Effectively, kill it. Right? So a lot of the big system implementations and technology change programs that I get involved with, there's a lot of good money thrown after bad, and at some point in time, someone will say, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to kill that, and we're going to write all that money off, and we're going to go off and do something else. Okay? Before you do that, you could pause, you could pivot, or you could fix. Okay? One client I worked with in Switzerland, they were doing a big SAP implementation, spending millions and millions of euros. They paused, killed 3 times, and wrote off millions and millions and millions of euros. And then they did it again. So something's not right. So before you do that, it's better to pause and then reassess, right? And not necessarily start again, but really decide what the best way forward is. So put a name to it: fix, pivot, pause, or kill, because this is where things actually get real and the leap forward becomes possible. And you know what? A reset is where intention reigns. So it's where we move from we need to fix something to here's exactly what we are going to fix and why. And once we've made that decision, we can then act. And that then leads us to delivery. Okay, because delivery is where we can think about what it is that we're actually going to do, and we can nurture those seeds we sowed and have grown into seedlings and then onto maturity that we can harvest, just like these lovely tomato seedlings here that you can see on the screen. Because delivering is about consistent action, regular cadence, and knowing when to act and adjust. And the action of delivering is about being clear about ownership and its assignment, those really important roles and responsibilities. It's also can be about setting short, sharp milestones for quick or fast wins, creating fast feedback loops, and building momentum through visible wins that because that keeps the changes locked in and helps prevent regression. Really be aware of skipping this part because there are consequences. So just like those tomatoes, if they get blight, good intentions can die on the same vine if they're not dealt with quickly. Okay, so you have to cut that blight out, get rid of it, burn it, otherwise it will spread like wildfire. So it's really important that we don't skip this part. And it's also important to note, and Linda mentioned this before we started the recording, we've all been on agile training and lots of other trainings, and as soon as we get back to the office, we revert to type and we forget all of that stuff. And we just carry on as we always have been. So if you really want to change and you really want to leap forward, then acknowledge and recognize that people will quickly revert to old patterns and ways of working unless those changes are reinforced and you continue to be consistent about the message that you're giving. And then as a result of that, if we don't follow through, our certainty will slip away again before we know it, and we're facing the same challenges with all those hidden costs that are going to hit us. So it matters because delivery is where certainty becomes real and intent becomes outcome, or intent turns into outcome. And without that, all that work that we've done to assess and reset and everything else will just disappear in a puff of smoke. Okay, so now time for another question for you all. And again, love to see your responses in the chat. So whether it be assess, reset, or deliver, what's one thing that you could be intentional about this week, given what you answered to your biggest challenge, those other questions that we were talking about, these kinds of things around clear ownership or regular cadence and reinforcing? Is there one thing that you could be intentional about this week when it comes to delivering on the changes that you want to achieve so you can leap forward? And just give you a minute on that. Be good to see if you've got some ideas, or keep it to yourself if you want. It's no problem. Maybe you're already doing it. I don't know. But we'll move forward because I can't reiterate this enough, that if you really want to be certain about what's going on in your business, how it's operating, that everything is aligned and things are working the way that you want them to, and you understand what's going on and you can redirect with ease, then that certainty requires consciousness and conscious design. Because when we take stock and we know our baseline through our assessment, we can make those intentional choices and we can execute with cadence. And from there, we'll be more certain about what's going on and can leap forward, as I said, for our business, our people, and our clients. Because certainty isn't a luxury, it's a leadership imperative. And it's not accidental, it's really, it's got to be intentional. So based on the framework of assess, reset, deliver, and sustain, that's what conscious leaders do until it becomes part of their DNA. So it's effectively an unconscious consciousness, if that's even a thing, because it's just automatic. They just work that way. It's in their DNA. They don't wait for crisis. They're designing for certainty, intentionally and on purpose. So those were the main things that I wanted to cover or give a, insight to and generate some conversation and some thinking. And because the framework's pretty simple, we all do it. We all do it in different ways. But if you are interested, then there is a mini diagnostic And once you've done that, if you want to have a 30-minute strategy session with me to focus on those results, that's no problem. Because through that, then we can identify exactly what is driving your biggest challenge, where any action you take will have the biggest impact, and what your next move might be. And then, as I said earlier, I've shared a two QR codes here, one for the mini diagnostic and one if you just want to talk to me.